How is it rocking, Dween Nation? Stay here because we are just about to get underway. In the meantime, please like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. We put out weekly sports content, and we want to continue to build up Dween Nation and the brand that is Dween Sports. Thank you all, and enjoy. Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is your host, Justin Paez, alongside Genoa Agudelo, and we are back for another episode. Just covered our week 2 recap, and now we're moving past week 2 on to week 3. We're on the road, starting to look at the waiver wire. What week 3, or I guess the end of week 2 into week 3's waiver wire looks like. Who you need to pick up. This week actually is, I think it's a pretty juicy week of waiver wire candidates. We got 4 people, each of us do, and we're going to discuss why you need to pick them up. If it's a plug and play kind of guy, if you're going to start him this week, or if a guy that you really need that handcuff that, he's looked good last week, or, your running back maybe has that injury, bug. You'll hear from us. But before we dive into it, how you feeling?
Yo, Dween Nation. Week 2 is now in the books, Justin. It's in our rearview mirror, and now it's time to get ready for week 3, Justin.
Sure.
Some of us are 0-2 now, Justin. So, we gotta pick it up. We gotta find players to plug and play there. Going into week 3, we can't be 0-3, Justin. We need to get that victory, that first fantasy dub. We're craving it, but hey, these are the players, Justin, that we're gonna get into, and I'm so excited, Justin. I'm so excited to talk about these players.
No, I like that you mentioned 2 weeks have gone by, guys. We want to hear what your thoughts are. You 2-0 and you're riding high through 2 weeks. 1-1 where it's all right. It's early on, and then 0-2. It's still early on, but you might have some worries not having that win in the victory column. But listen to the Dween Sports podcast, and hopefully we can turn that around for you guys, or continue to build on your success early on in the season. And that really it's weighed heavily on your waiver wire activity, being active, picking up people when you need to. And we're gonna start at the top. I'm gonna throw out my first name, a guy that I think is going under the radar, had a very solid week 2, and that is Mike Gesicki of the Cincinnati Bengals. Tight end, had 7 catches, 91 yards last week against the Chiefs on 9 targets. I think he is, Cincinnati usually, last season they didn't have it, but usually they have a tight end kind of surprise people. We had CJ Uzuma, I think, was one of the years. I don't know why names are escaping me. I think Drew Sample had a handful of games a handful of years ago. But this year they get a guy who's actually probably the most capable tight end they've had, and since Joe Burrow's been around. And I think he's due for a good season. And he had a good week last week. In week 1, actually, he had a touchdown that was called back, but the refs said after the game that should have been called a touchdown. Now listen to this. If they had called that a touchdown, Mike Gesicki would be the tight end 3 on the season so far, and he would already be on roster. So I think this is an absolute steal for you guys. If you can go on the waiver wire, scoop him up. He's literally only owned in 2.6% of ESPN leagues. So he's out there for you guys. Tight end is a wasteland currently. We've had a bunch of struggling tight ends. We mentioned Travis Kelce in our last episode, Sam Laporta, Mark Andrews. So there's been some serious struggles. And I'm not saying to start Gesicki over any of them. I'm just saying, we also have had injuries. Njoku, Jake Ferguson, Evan Ingram missed last week. So Gesicki, I think, is a prime pickup for you guys in your fantasy leagues. And I don't be scared to play him. I think he'll be a good play right off the back heading into week 3. And with T. Higgins being injured, he slots in as a second option. And Jamar Chase is struggling too. And last bit of information, they play the Commanders on Monday night at home. So good matchup. He's playing well. He's getting targeted by Joe Burrow. Prime pickup, Mike Gesicki.
Yeah, Justin, I like that a lot. We don't know when T. Higgins is going to come back, so Joe Burrow's going to need that second kind of go-to guy to go to. Obviously, I think Jamar Chase is going to have a great game, but Gesicki is now is going to be a great guy to look around the red zone there. Joe Burrow's definitely going to be looking his way. He could have scored that touchdown, and Justin, if he scores that touchdown, the Bengals win. So that's going to be a guy they're going to be looking at here on Monday night. A guy that I'm going to go off to, I'm going to go off with a quarterback here. This guy had a great game in Dallas. And he goes by the name of Derek Carr. Look, I'm one of those guys going into this year that was saying, oh, I don't know if Derek Carr is going to have a great year. And it's still early. I don't think he'll finish the year as a quarterback for so far. He is hot right now, Justin.
Yeah.
He went into Dallas and had 243 yards and a touchdown. He had this 70-yard pass. It was a bomb to Rashid Shaheed there, a score. And look at the playmakers he has, Justin. Obviously, Kamara had a great game from the ground, but he also had a great game, receiving. So that's something. He has Alvin Kamara to throw to, and Rashid Shaheed, and he had Chris Olave, who had 81 yards. Not too bad of a game from Olave. So he has those three guys to throw it to. And as long as Juwan Johnson, who's a pretty good red zone threat there. So Derek Carr has four pretty good weapons to kind of throw to. Obviously, the Saints always have somebody completely random to throw to as well, like maybe like a Foster Moreau. Glad he's back playing football. And so this is something to look at with Derek Carr. Now, this upcoming week, he's home against the Eagles, who, just lost. It's going to be a 2-0 team versus a 1-1. So you can make the argument that Derek Carr is going to have a great game. He's only rostered in only 9.6% ESPN fantasy leagues. And kind of looking here on what the Saints can kind of be, looking at their, kind of looking at the Saints schedule here. Obviously, this upcoming week they have the Eagles. And then they go to Atlanta, which could be a possible shootout. They also go to Kansas City on a Monday night, which could be a possible shootout. Then they come back week 6, home with Tampa Bay. So maybe those couple weeks could be kind of great for Derek Carr. So that's someone I'm kind of eyeing on in the waiver wire this week.
I think that's a great selection. Obviously, he's the quarterback 2 so far in the season through 2 weeks. But it looks like his weapons are going to be they're good. They're really good weapons. And Kamara obviously had a bunch of touchdowns this week, a couple on the ground that stole from Derek Carr. But normally, I think Derek Carr is going to be the guy doing that. Obviously, you got Olave. We have a breakout in Rashid Shaheed. Taysom Hill did leave the game injured, but I think he should be all right. He's another guy that they can utilize. And then, of course, Alvin Kamara. I think the Saints are surprising a lot of people, including myself. And I think it's going to continue, especially into this week, home against the Eagles. The Eagles' defense has struggled thus far through 2 weeks. Obviously, losing a close one to Atlanta. They just drove on Philadelphia to end that game. So I think Derek Carr is a prime quarterback pickup. And if you have Jordan Love and you were, maybe you threw in a quarterback you didn't like Fields or something, I think Carr is a perfect, guy to scoop up and start this week. You mentioned those games after this week. It gets somewhat tough. I mean, at Kansas City, their defense is pretty solid. But I think at Atlanta, I think he can have a good game. And then right after that, home against Tampa, home against Denver. I think those are good, capable games for Derek Carr to continue to be good in fantasy. So I like that pick there. Moving to my next pick, I'm going to dive into some running backs. And I'm going to start with Braelon Allen of the New York Jets. I believe he wasn't too featured in week 1, right? He only had 1 carry, 8 yard, and one catch for 9 yards. So there was like, oh, he's clear. It's clearly Breece Hall's backfield. Don't have to worry about that. Week 2 comes around, and Braelon Allen gets involved pretty heavily, I'd say, more than just your normal handcuff backup running back. He gets 2 touchdowns, and he looks phenomenal. He looks like a great running back already. Big bruiser back, but also can receive the ball out of the backfield. And it has me super excited with it that he could possibly have standalone value in fantasy football. And then especially if Breece Hall is injured ever, Braelon Allen slots in as a top 15 running back right off the cuff. And I think he's looking great. He's only 20 years old, gets 2 touchdowns, 1 on the ground, 1 in the air. In a matchup where, Chicago Bears on offense struggled against the Titans to run the ball in week 1. That wasn't the case for the New York Jets. Braelon Allen's only owned in 7.4% of ESPN fantasy leagues. And I think it's a great pickup, especially if you have Breece Hall.
Yeah, no, I like it, Justin. He absolutely looks phenomenal. He looks very talented. And he's someone that Aaron Rodgers and the Jets offense, kind of coordinated by Nathaniel Hackett, that's someone that they're going to be looking to get in their packages, every play. Obviously Breece Hall is the workhorse. So maybe when they're kind of giving Breece Hall, some rest there, on a snap count, perhaps. He's going to be the guy they're going to be leaning on. I love Braelon Allen. Obviously, with an aging veteran quarterback in Rodgers, that's going to be another guy that he's going to want to throw the football to. So look out there for some PPR. So definitely a good selection there. I'm going to go with the wide receiver here. He played tonight, actually, not too long ago, and it's Darnell Mooney there. I think I'm saying his name right. Mooney. Darnell. I'm sorry. I knew I said his name wrong. Darnell Mooney there. He was pretty good in Chicago for those couple years. Kind of before DJ Moore was traded there from Carolina. Darnell Mooney was that number one receiver there. Had a couple good seasons there in Chicago. He is now an Atlanta Falcon there, Justin. And he kind of can make Kirk Cousins' life easier there. And Justin, tonight here in Philadelphia, he had 3 catches, 88 yards, and a tutty. He had a deep, kind of touchdown there where he broke off and scored. And he's going to be Kirk Cousins' go-to guy. Obviously defenses are looking at Drake London and as well as Kyle Pitts. So Moody's going to be the guy who's going to be able to break away and get away and score. And he has some pretty good matchups there. Obviously, I'm not really sure if I want to start him this upcoming week against Kansas City, but he's someone that I can kind of stash there on the bench and kind of look to start here in a couple weeks once bye weeks kind of start. If there was something to happen to Kirk Cousins, hopefully he plays the whole year. Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback will kind of boost Mooney's fantasy stock because I feel like he's more of a deep threat kind of quarterback. And so no matter who the quarterback is, I feel like at some point this season, Mooney's going to be kind of one of those top guys here in the Falcons offense.
No, I think Mooney's a very under the radar kind of guy. I mean, obviously that last drive for Atlanta that led them to victory, he was heavily utilized. Got 2 big chunk plays that helped them get the victory, and then he also pulled out a touchdown. So I think he's kind of obviously he's new to the team as well, so he's kind of stepping more into that wide receiver 2 role. And with Atlanta, they have their next 3 games at home. Obviously, you mentioned one is with the Chiefs, so that one's kind of a little wishy-washy. But then New Orleans, Tampa Bay, at Carolina. So 3 of the next 4 matchups I actually like for Atlanta and for Darnell Mooney. And we saw flashes of him being a good wide receiver in Chicago, a handful of years ago. So I think he's interesting. And now that Atlanta we kind of saw it on offense start to form a little bit, a sustainable offense, that only helps Mooney's stock. So I like that there. Moving to my third waiver wire pickup, I have D'Onta Foreman of the Cleveland Browns. We talked a little bit about him in the week 2 recap. But looking at this guy, D'Onta Foreman, obviously the last handful of years he's been a journeyman. He's jumped from team to team, but he's made a major impact to me in all those teams he's been a part of. With Tennessee, then Carolina, and last year even sometimes in Chicago. Now he finds himself with Cleveland. Nick Chubb, to me, will not be back. I'd argue he might not be back all season. If not, and if he does come back, I think it's post week 10. Post week 12 even. So you have a guy who's on Cleveland where they've been relying on Jerome Ford, right? He's done pretty solidly. I think he's been fine. But Foreman is that bruiser back that Cleveland kind of desires, that what Nick Chubb, that edge kind of Nick Chubb gives them. And I'm not saying Foreman has Nick Chubb, is a Nick Chubb running back, but he has that type of capability. And Foreman, I think, he obviously this past week got 14 carries to Jerome Ford's 7. So they started utilizing Foreman more and more. And the reason maybe that we didn't, kind of think of Foreman early on is he did have an injury in training camp, which he missed a lot of time for. But now he's in the offense, kind of getting more and more touches. He's a big back. And I think he's kind of worth the pickup, only owned in 1.9% of fantasy leagues. So not a guy with high ownership. So he's out there just about everywhere. And I think he's set up he could usurp Jerome Ford of his early down work. I think Ford will kind of be utilized more as the 3rd down back, but I think Foreman is in line to take over as the lead back for the Browns.
Yeah, that's very interesting to see there. I think Jerome Ford kind of still has some good games going into the season, but D'Onta Foreman, everywhere he's gone, he's kind of been pretty well. Obviously, when he was a part of my Texans, he was like a 3rd string. I know he had a couple good years in Tennessee when Derrick Henry had, a year when he was hurt. He went to Chicago. He's a pretty good back, so definitely fits the scheme there in Cleveland. Obviously, Kareem Hunt's not there anymore. Nick Chubb is hurt. Jerome Ford is kind of underperforming. So, hey, Deontay Foreman could be the guy. Kind of leads the Browns this season. A guy that I'm or not a guy, but I'm gonna go with the defense here. I'm gonna go with the Buffalo Bills defense, a waiver wire pickup here. They had a great game, phenomenal game on Thursday night. Kind of before Tua went out with that injury. Thankfully, he's okay. But before Tua went out, the Bills were shutting down, Tua, picking him off 3 times there. And the Bills, they're only rostered in about 15% of leagues. Wow. There, Justin. Pretty interesting. I like their matchup home next week there against Jacksonville. They're struggling. But here's one thing to point out. I want to tell Dween Nation that the next 2 weeks is going to be a little difficult for the Bills. But there's a defense that you just got to keep on. Because, look, they have Baltimore and Houston the next couple of weeks. I do like their matchup at the Jets after. I think their defense can kind of get to Rodgers. And then they have Tennessee. Along the weeks, they have to play Miami again home. Obviously, we don't know if Tua is going to be, there all season. We don't know when Tua is going to be back. They have some juicy matchups as the year goes along. So Bills defense is someone to look out. We thought they were going to be we thought they're going to be scored on a lot on Thursday night against the Dolphins offense, but that wasn't the case. Tua struggled. So this could be a defense that, even last week against Kyler Murray, they didn't allow 28 points, but Kyler Murray didn't perform as well. And look what he does this week. So the Bills defense is someone to look at there and kind of just plug and play. But I do like the Buffalo Bills defense as a sneaky waiver I pick up this upcoming week.
I think it's a great streaming pick. I think you don't have to rely on defenses, week after week after week, because they have a tough schedule after this upcoming game against the Jaguars. So they go to Baltimore, go to Houston, go to New York Jets. But this week, I think it's a prime pickup. And fantasy managers, don't be scared if you only can utilize a defense for the week. Just use them. Maybe drop them. Pick up another defense. That's kind of how my formula works most of the time. That's how the dice rolls. So I think the Bills are a good one to hit my third, or did I hit my last? I'm sorry, hit my last. Waiver pickup. We're gonna do kind of like a streaming kicker of the week, as Geno delivered the streaming defense of the week. I have a streaming kicker, and I have Blake. I honestly do not know what the correct pronunciation of his last name is. He is the Saints kicker, Blake Group. Dween Nation, let us know what it actually is. But he's looked really good with the Saints, and obviously they scored on all 14 of their possessions through week 1 and week 2. Obviously putting up 47 against the Panthers, and then backing that up with 44 against the Cowboys. But he had, look at this, he had only 1 field goal last week, but that's because they really did not. They were scoring every drive. I mean, it was touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. I don't expect it to be that easy all the time. Like similar to week 1. I mean, he had a 30-yard field goal, a 40-yard field goal, 2 50s, and 4 extra points. He had 24 points, or I guess 22 points in fantasy in week 1. Only had 7 last week, but then this week comes into a game where he plays the Philadelphia Eagles, where they're going to be scoring. They're going to be in scoring positions all game. We just saw Younghoe Koo had a really good game against the Eagles. So I expect Blake Grupe to be kind of an easy scoop up in your fantasy leagues, and he's only owned in 2.3% of leagues.
Yeah.
What's your last pick for your waiver wire?
I'm gonna go with Geno Smith there, Justin. I think he had a pretty good outing there in New England this past week, performing really well. I think he threw for 300 yards there, and I like his matchup this upcoming week in a potential shootout. I have this feeling that Skylar Thompson's going to have a pretty good game. That's going to feed the sense of urgency for Seattle to match them in points. And it's going to be kind of somewhat of a high-scoring game. I'm not sure if it would be more if Tua would play, but I just like Geno Smith to have a pretty good game. On Justin, we have a Jackson Smith and Jigba breakout this past week, finally getting over 100 yards for the first time in his career. I think something that's kind of continues. DK Metcalf is there, and Tyler Lockett's still there. So, obviously, Charbonnet's kind of made his case to be a pretty good receiving running back. I know last week against the Broncos, he scored a pretty good receiving touchdown there. So, it gives Geno Smith 3 or 4 good people to throw it to. Obviously, if Ken Walker can come back this week, I think he also provides a pretty good running back to throw to outside out of the backfield. So I love Geno Smith there. I think the new scheme there with Mike McDonald kind of improves there. And so I like Geno Smith. And he's gonna be in games where he's gonna have to throw. Charbonnet is a pretty good running back, but he's not gonna get you a whole ton of yards. He's gonna get you that touchdown on the goal line. And if Ken Walker's not playing, that even provides more Geno Smith throwing time. He threw 44 passes yesterday without Ken Walker, so that's pretty something to look at there in a potential shootout against Miami.
I honestly think that with Walker out, they know that Charbonnet is not the runner that Walker is, so they decide to pass it more. And the fact that I think Walker will be out another week, he'll probably be back in week 4, but I think week 3 he'll miss. I think that'll allow Seattle to pass the rock more. And I think that it's going to be a game similar to last week with 44 pass attempts. I think he'll kind of be in that high 30s, maybe or low 40s in pass attempts, and it'll be another big game, I think, for Geno Smith and the rest of that offense. So I think that's a great waiver wire pick. So, Dween Nation, you got 2 quarterbacks you can look at. Derek Carr, Geno Smith, delivered by Geno. I got 2 running backs, kind of more of depth pieces, but I think they'll come into their own. I think Foreman especially. So we got Foreman and Braelon Allen there, and then a wide receiver, Darnell Mooney, as well as tight end Mike Gesicki, kicker Blake Gruppe, and Bills defense home against the Jaguars. So that's essentially a whole lineup that if you need somebody on the waiver wire, you can scoop them up, play them in your lineups. Hopefully, they do well and be a part of your successful victory against whoever you're playing against. So thanks for listening, guys. It's our waiver wire episode. We just had our week 2 recap episodes, and we're looking ahead to our fantasy forecast episodes coming soon, in a couple days. So stay tuned. And as always, send us out.
Dween Nation, we love you guys. We're so excited to already start prepping for week 3. And we have a couple more videos we'll have out leading to week 3. So, guys, we love y'all. Thanks for watching. We're so excited this football season. It's already kind of moving a little too fast for me, Justin,
Right.
But I'm not going to lie. It's been a lot of fun, a ton of fun to kind of just, seeing this action unfold in front of us. And so we're so excited for week 3 and weeks beyond that, guys. So just keep watching. Stay tuned. Dween Nation, we love you guys. Justin, it was fun talking football with you, my brother. And as always, peace.